I was holding the keys to a luxury apartment in downtown Los Angeles. And across the hallway, the woman who once called me a broke loser was struggling to unlock her own front door of the apartment I now owned. She didn't even know yet. But she would. My name is Jordan Miles. I'm 36 years old, born and raised just outside San Diego. I work in contract-based cybersecurity, mostly behind the scenes. Quiet life. No flash. No social media. Just focus and discipline. I spent most of my 20s working 16-hour days while living in a beat-up studio apartment. People thought I was crazy. Even my friends laughed at how cheap I was. But I wasn't broke. I was building. Still, none of them judged me more than the woman I loved. Rachel. When I met Rachel, she was everything I wasn't. Glamorous. Loud. Addicted to attention. She had this energy that could pull people in from across the room, and when she looked at you, you felt like the only man alive. But looking back now, I realized she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at what I couldn't give her, what I didn't flash. And I gave her something better than money. I gave her loyalty, time, love without conditions. But she had her own conditions. And once she decided I didn't meet them, she started showing me who she really was. I still remember the first time she rolled her eyes when I paid with cash. Or when she introduced me as just a contractor at her friend's party. Or when I suggested we move into a smaller place to save for a down payment, and she laughed. Laughed, but I said nothing. Because in her eyes, I was just another broke guy punching above his league. She didn't know I'd been investing since I was 21. She didn't know about the 3 rental properties under my cousin's name. She didn't know I could have bought her dream apartment 3 times over. She thought I had nothing. So she treated me like nothing. But I wasn't angry. I was patient. Because when someone tries to humiliate you, you can scream, fight, beg for respect. Or you can build quietly and let success do the speaking. So that's what I did. And by the time she realized who I really was, she was living in a building she used to brag about, paying rent to a faceless landlord she never met. Me, when I first met Rachel, I wasn't looking for love. I had just come off a brutal project in D.C., burned out, tired, and honestly just focused on saving up for a down payment on a duplex I had my eye on. I wasn't flashy. I didn't wear expensive watches. I drove a used Honda and wore the same 2 jackets on rotation. But Rachel noticed me anyway. Or at least, I thought she did. We met at a fitness boot camp in Echo Park. She was loud, confident, always surrounded by people. I was quiet, the guy who showed up on time, didn't talk much, and left right after class. One day, she walked up to me, asked for a spot during weight training, and the next week, we were having smoothies after class like we'd known each other for years. She told me she liked that I was calm, that I listened. She said, "You feel like peace in a world full of noise." And I believed her. The early days were good, better than good. We'd go on long walks, cook dinners at home, talk about dreams. She told me she wanted to open a boutique one day, that she was tired of shallow dating. She said I made her feel safe, and to be honest, that meant something to me, because I'd never really had someone say that before. I thought we were building something real, and for a while, I ignored the small things. The way she'd roll her eyes when I said I didn't believe in credit card debt. The way she'd pause when people asked what I did for a living, like she was trying to make it sound more impressive than it was. I thought maybe she just didn't understand my world. I was from structure, systems, and savings. She was from dreams, aesthetics, and manifesting energy. Opposites attract, right? But over time, the cracks became harder to ignore. She started comparing me to other people. Her friends' boyfriends were crushing it in tech or crypto or running YouTube channels. She'd say things like, "Don't you ever get tired of just surviving?" I wanted to say, "I'm not surviving. I'm building quietly." But I kept quiet. I thought love would be enough. I remember this one night in particular. We were at her friend's rooftop birthday party in West Hollywood. Everyone was dressed like they were about to walk a runway. Someone asked me what I did, and before I could answer, Rachel jumped in. She said, "Oh, he's just doing some IT stuff. It's not really exciting, but he's sweet." And she laughed. Right there. In front of everyone. Like I was some harmless little background character in her life. I smiled. But inside, something in me cracked. I didn't say anything. I just poured myself another drink, looked out over the city skyline, and thought, you have no idea who you're standing next to. She always talked about energy and abundance, but her version of abundance had a dress code. Designer shoes, rooftop selfies, and men who could buy bottle service. Not quiet guys with savings accounts and long-term plans. But still, I loved her. So I made compromises. I paid for trips I didn't enjoy. I bought gifts she barely acknowledged. I sat through dinners where her friends talked down to me like I was just some hobby. And then came the worst part. She stopped touching me. No hugs. No kisses. No warmth. Just cold, distant sarcasm, and that look in her eyes, like she was already somewhere else. She used to text me things like, "I love your calm. I feel safe with you." Now, it was, "You should try being more ambitious." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her I'd already crossed a six-figure net worth, that I'd been investing in real estate since I was 23, that I could have bought the shoes her favorite influencer wore, in every color. But I didn't. Because I knew, if someone only values you when you flash wealth, then they don't value you at all. I thought we were a team. I thought she saw something deeper in me. But the truth was brutal. She didn't fall out of love. She fell out of interest. And the second she thought I couldn't level up with her lifestyle, she left. And even that? I didn't stop. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay." But I knew something she didn't. She thought the story was over. She thought she was moving on, climbing higher. She didn't realize the next building she'd move into, the one she'd brag about, post stories in, invite new boyfriends to, would belong to me. And when the time was right, she'd know. The silence after a breakup isn't always loud. Sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes it's deceptive. When Rachel walked out of my life, she did it like she was doing me a favor. No screaming. No crying. Just a calm little smirk, a half-hearted hug, and a final line I'll never forget. "You'll find someone better. Someone at your level." I didn't respond. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew the story wasn't finished. Over the next few months, we barely spoke. But I saw her. Instagram posts in new places. Selfies in elevators I recognized. Laughter in restaurants I couldn't afford back when I was just starting out, but now could buy gift cards for in bulk. She was moving fast. Faster than I expected. And then, I saw it. A picture. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just a mirror selfie in a gorgeous downtown apartment. But I paused. The hallway. The tiles. The angle of the windows. I recognized it. It was Unit 7B, a property I'd had my eye on 2 years ago, located in the high-rise building that sat right across from where I used to park every day for work. The same unit that had gone back on the market recently, and the same one I was now in the process of closing through a silent LLC I'd set up months earlier. I had no idea she was even applying to rent in that building. But seeing her there, it hit different. Was it fate? Coincidence? Or just the universe giving me an opportunity? At first, I brushed it off. I thought maybe she was just visiting. But over the next few weeks, she kept posting from the same spot. Morning coffee on the balcony, sunsets from the rooftop. Her new life, curated and filtered for everyone to admire. It didn't take long to find out she had moved in. I checked the rental application history through my property manager. There it was, Rachel Adams, co-signed with someone named Cameron Wild. Apparently she hadn't moved in alone. Cameron, the new boyfriend. Tech startup guy. Slick, sharp, and loud on social media. The kind of guy she used to say she hated. Now, he was her whole world. I watched from the shadows, not obsessively, just quietly. I had access to the building's internal maintenance requests, the move-in date, the rent transfer confirmations. Every time they paid rent, it went straight to my holding company's bank. And every time she posted a photo in that apartment, I smiled. Not because she looked happy, but because she had no idea who really owned the keys. The irony wasn't lost on me. She left me because I wasn't ambitious enough. Now she was living her dream, financed by a man she thought was gone. But something else started to shift. Over the next month, the tone of her posts changed. Less smiles, fewer captions. The love of my life photos with Cameron vanished. I knew that silence. I'd lived in it. Then came the subtle indicators. A maintenance complaint about a leaking dishwasher. An auto payment missed, first time in 2 months. And finally, a phone call from my property manager saying the female tenant, Rachel, had called to renegotiate the rent, claiming she'd be handling the payments on her own moving forward. I didn't even need to ask. Cameron was gone. And just like that, Rachel was back to where she started. Alone. But this time, she was renting a dream she couldn't afford. I had the power to evict her if I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I watched her tighten her life. No more brunches. No more designer bags. Just Rachel, struggling to maintain an image in a space she didn't realize belonged to someone she once laughed at. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I didn't expect. Not revenge. Not satisfaction. Just clarity. The woman who once told me I'd never be enough was now unknowingly paying me to live inside the very life she said I couldn't give her. And she still didn't know. But she would. I just had to wait. Because revenge isn't about pain. Sometimes, it's just about patience. About letting life run its course, until the moment is perfect. And mine was coming, the day I knew, truly knew, that everything had changed. Wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It came on a Tuesday. Cloudy skies. No noise. Just a flicker of truth that would change everything. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing audit logs for a client's network security when my phone buzzed. Not from Rachel. Not even about her. It was an email from my property manager. The monthly inspection photos for Unit 7B. Routine stuff. Part of our automated tenant oversight system. But then, I saw the photo. It was Rachel, sitting alone on the edge of the living room couch. a blanket wrapped around her. No makeup. Messy bun. A look on her face I had never seen before. Not when we were together. Not when she was glowing on Instagram. It was the look of someone tired. Not tired like you just need sleep. Tired like the world let you down, and you don't even have the strength to pretend anymore. And next to her, a wine glass. Half full. On a weekday. At noon. That one image hit me harder than all the words she ever threw at me. Because she had no audience. No filter. No smile to weaponize. Just her. And reality. And suddenly, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even smug. I just felt done. Done pretending I still needed to prove something. Done wondering what if she had seen my worth. Done holding on to someone who couldn't see past status symbols long enough to love someone solid. But still, something inside me needed closure. I didn't want her to suffer. I just wanted her to see, to realize what she walked away from. And so I planned one final move. Not for revenge. For revelation. That weekend, I asked my property manager to email the tenants of Unit 7B, informing them that the owner of the unit would be stopping by in person to discuss a lease renewal. Rachel wouldn't think twice. To her, I was gone. Erased. She thought the man she left behind was still down there somewhere, quietly rebuilding his broken little heart. She didn't know I'd been building something else entirely. Sunday morning, I walked into the building I legally owned part of. The doorman greeted me with the respect he always did, because my LLC name was on 5 other units too. I took the elevator to the 7th floor. Paused for a second. Then knocked. There was a shuffle inside. Then silence. Then, finally, the sound of the door unlocking. And when it opened, there she was. Rachel. Hair tied back. Eyes half alert. Wearing a robe I remembered. One I bought her for Christmas when we couldn't even afford gifts. She froze. Her lips parted slightly. Jordan? I didn't smile. Didn't smirk. I just held up the folder in my hand, her lease renewal, and said 6 simple words. We need to talk about rent. She didn't speak right away. Her eyes scanned the paper in my hand, then flicked back to my face, as if trying to process whether I was real or some ghost from a past she thought she'd buried under new beginnings. I stepped inside, uninvited but calm. Rachel stood frozen by the door as I walked slowly to the center of the apartment, the one she used to dream about when we lived in a cramped 1-bedroom, where the walls were thin and ambition was louder than peace. She finally broke the silence. You own this place? I nodded once. She let out a breath that was half a laugh, half a choke. I thought you were working on fixing your life. I looked at her, really looked. Still beautiful, but softer now. The kind of softness life gives you when you've run out of people to blame. I didn't answer her question. I just placed the lease renewal on the kitchen counter and said, Rent's going up. Market adjustment. You have 60 days. She blinked. That's not legal. It's completely legal, I replied. You're on a month-to-month lease. You were offered a 12-month option and declined it. That was 3 months ago. You're on borrowed time. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even angry anymore. This was business. This was the war I had trained for in silence. Because while she had been out chasing validation and luxury, I had spent the last 2 years learning the fine print. Learning how LLCs worked. How holding companies shield your name. How you can be invisible, yet own everything. I had created a structure so layered she could have lived here for years and never known. But now she did. And nothing would ever be the same. After a long silence, she asked, "Did you do all this to get back at me?" I looked at her, straight in the eyes. "No. I did this because I wanted a life where no one could ever make me feel small again." She swallowed hard. The kind of swallow you do when the weight of your own choices lands heavy in your chest. "I didn't know you had it in you. You never bothered to find out," I said. There was no gloating, no dramatic monologue, just a realization, hers, that she had spent so long judging what I didn't show, she never cared to ask what I actually had. And what I had was power. Quiet, patient, unstoppable power. Let me be clear. I didn't get rich to hurt her. I didn't buy this apartment just to watch her squirm. I bought it because it made sense. I bought it because I believe in long-term equity, not fast image. And I let her move in, unknowingly, because I had nothing to prove. But when I saw that wine glass next to her on the couch, that look in her eyes, like the world was finally too heavy, I realized she wasn't my enemy anymore. She was just a reflection of what happens when you bet everything on appearances and forget the substance underneath. So I gave her options. "You can stay. Sign a 12-month lease. Rent goes up by $300. Or you can move out within 60 days, no penalty." She looked up, stunned. "You're giving me a choice? I'm giving you the dignity I never got." There was a silence between us then. Not angry. Not tense. Just quiet. The kind of silence that says, "We're not the same people we were." She nodded slowly. Took the papers. Didn't cry. Didn't plead. Just whispered, "I guess I misjudged you." And I smiled, not because she said it, but because I no longer needed to hear it. That night, I walked out of that apartment feeling lighter than I had in years. This wasn't revenge. This was the conclusion of a chapter one had rewritten, with discipline, silence, and strategy. And Rachel? She could either adapt, or keep living a life where she chased money without ever understanding value. I gave her the contract. She gave me closure. Both of us walked away with exactly what we deserved. Rachel didn't sign the lease right away. She needed time to think, she said, though I knew that wasn't the truth. She wasn't thinking about whether to stay. She was thinking about how she got here. In her world, she'd always been the one walking away. From jobs. From friendships. From me. Now, for the first time, someone was drawing the line, and she couldn't argue, manipulate, or charm her way around it. And the worst part? It wasn't just someone. It was me. The man she once mocked for having a small money mindset was now the name hidden behind the lease she couldn't afford to break. Over the next few days, she stayed quiet. Her social media went dark. The selfies stopped. The rooftop shots disappeared. She even turned off comments on her old posts. That silence said more than any message ever could. Then, a week later, I got an email. Subject: lease discussion follow-up. It was Rachel. She had signed the new 12-month lease, acknowledged the rent increase, and in her message, she included one final line. "I won't bother you again. Thank you for the options. You were more generous than I deserved." I didn't reply. Not because I was being cold, but because the story didn't need more words. She knew now. She knew what it felt like to live in a space she didn't control. To smile for strangers while privately feeling small. To wonder if your own choices are coming back to haunt you. Because sometimes they do. But the final twist? That came 3 weeks later. I got a call from my property manager. Apparently, A local podcast had reached out asking to interview one of our luxury landlords for a real estate-themed episode. It was a niche show. Nothing viral. But I agreed, anonymously of course. They recorded the interview in a quiet cafe downtown. And somewhere in the middle of the conversation, the host asked, "What's your proudest real estate decision so far?" I smiled, looked down at my coffee, and said, "Buying a property that ended up being rented by the person who once told me I'd never succeed." The host laughed. "Seriously?" I nodded. She didn't know it was mine. Still doesn't know, technically. But I think sometimes life gives you full circle moments. Quiet ones. And they hit harder than any fight ever could. We moved on to other questions. But that line, that one made the final edit. And about 2 weeks later, Rachel found it. I know because she texted me at 1:16 a.m. "I heard your interview. That story, it was about me, wasn't it? I just want to say, I'm sorry for everything." I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel, but because, by then, I was done living in the past. Letting her know? That wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. About giving her the truth, the same truth she denied me for years. I didn't take her home. I didn't bankrupt her. I didn't post screenshots or try to ruin her online. I simply let her live in the very thing she always wanted, while slowly realizing she had stepped into my world. My standards. My rules. My roof. And that's the most powerful revenge there is. Not shouting. Not exposing. Just winning in silence. It's been 9 months since that day. Rachel still lives in the apartment. She pays rent on time. No more requests. No more emails. No more texts. Sometimes I get updates from my manager, routine maintenance, lease reminders. Nothing personal. Nothing emotional. Just clean, quiet distance. And that's exactly how I like it. You see, I didn't go through all of this to prove a point to her. I went through it to prove something to myself. That I could stay calm when everything inside me wanted to scream. That I could rebuild not with anger, but with intention. And that I didn't need applause, closure, or even revenge to heal. Just clarity. For years, I used to replay conversations in my head. The night she laughed at me in front of her friends. The day she called me small. The way she looked at me like I'd never be enough. But now, those memories don't sting. They don't burn. They just exist. Like an old scar that no longer hurts, only reminds you how far you've come. Today, I live in a quiet neighborhood outside San Diego. I own 6 rental units. I work when I want, with who I want. No noise. No drama. Just peace. The kind of peace I used to beg her to help me build. Now I realize I never needed her for that. She taught me what not to settle for, what love should never feel like, and how ambition without respect is just ego in disguise. Do I hate her? No. Honestly, I wish her well, because I'm not carrying that weight anymore. She thought I was broke. What she didn't know is I was rich in patience, wealthy in discipline, and trained to build in silence, while everyone else shouted for attention. And in the end, that silence became my strongest weapon, because real power doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It simply waits and lets the world come full circle. Soft closing music fades in. Microphone final emotional line. Pause before delivery. She took her shot and walked away. I took my time and built the target she ended up standing on. If you've ever been underestimated, Let your silence be your strategy. And let your success speak for itself.